This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Brigary Financial. My name is Ron Stutz. I am always absolutely honored to spend a little time with Logan on the weekend on this show. Logan, how's it going, my man?
I'll tell you what, Ron, it's radio day, so I'm doing just fine today.
always get excited about the opportunity to do a show with you anyway, and I know you're going to, the cool thing is that you're going to actually help some people out there, spread some good information around, and some of those folks are going to call you. And speaking of that, here's the number to call if you would like to have a discovery meeting with Logan Sadler, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526, but remember it by using the word plan, which is something we all need, 888-823-PLAN. A discovery meeting is a conversation that's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. And we'll tell you more about that later on today. I got a fun fact of the week here, Logan. I know you understand these things, and you really get into these things, and you have, you're a dad, and you can certainly identify with this particular thing. All Fruit Loops are the same flavor, regardless of their color. That's what I read this week. I'm not really sure I believe that.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's been a while since I've had the Fruit Loops there, but I had a lot of them growing up. And trying to think back, I feel like they always taste a little bit different. But I kind of feel like I've been lied to all those years, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. I always kind of assumed maybe it was a psychological thing. A red one is going to taste different than the green one, and
And the blue one. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm trying to think. I guess when you take a bite, though, you're taking a bite of multiple. But I always felt like they each tasted a little differently. But apparently. Looks can be deceiving.
Well, you can't always believe everything you read, but I read that this week, and I read it on Instagram, so, who knows?
Well, people listen to the show, you're going to see huge spikes in Fruit Loop sales, right? Because everyone's going to go out, especially myself, and we're going to be like, hey, let's go try this out and make sure that's correct.
Exactly. Hey, let's talk about grading yourself. I don't mean grading you, but grading our listeners, giving them an opportunity to grade themselves. You can grade your own financial competency by saying how many of these questions you can answer. And Logan, you explain why it's important to know the answer to each one of these questions, okay?
Okay.
All right. Question number one, do you know how much you have? Why is that so important to be straight on that answer?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And it's funny because some people listening to this question might say, well, obviously I know how much I have, right? But it's funny because when you look at some people in their retirement savings, they can be spread out, like the multiple different colors of Fruit Loops we were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
They could be spread out quite thin, so to speak, right? Where I've seen some people have multiple different accounts in multiple different places, multiple different bank accounts, multiple life insurances, so we can go on for days on that, but just people have a lot of things kind of spread over time and not on purpose. A lot of the time it is you left a job, you had an old 401k, you got a new job, then you started an IRA because your tax person told you to, or things kind of get spread out that way. And it's funny, Ron, I was actually talking with a prospect who's just about to come on board with our firm, and it was funny because they had said, I'm 55 years old, we've done okay saving for retirement, but we just really haven't been very focused, and I think we're behind the eight ball,
Yeah.
And it was funny because all he had thought they had saved was around $400,000, and again, they were kind of higher income earners. And it was funny. He's like, I think, we got about 400,000, And it was funny. We always do a net worth statement for clients after we go through our first meeting. We go to the second meeting and we ask for documents of everything, and we kind of go through risk tolerance and all that, but also plugging in each of their accounts they had. And it's funny, Ron, because like you said, I had a $40,000 IRA, a $400,000 IRA that he remembered. She had an old $20,000 IRA. They had like $200,000 in multiple different bank accounts, and then she had $200,000 or $250,000 in an older 401k that they had kind of forgot about that had kind of grown because she had not been working for a while.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it's like, well, when you come down to it, they had around $900,000, give or take, market value there of assets. And he was like, well, that's a lot more than the 400 I thought we had, And And a lot of that because it was just kind of spread all over the place. So I'm a big believer in understanding and knowing what you have is really important, because a lot of the times you don't really even know how you're invested, or if it's doing the, even invested correctly for where it is you're at currently. So super, super important, those of you out there, if you don't know where all your assets are at, or maybe, it's been a while since you've looked at them, or they're spread in multiple places, I would highly recommend looking at some ways to consolidate those.
Well, I got to say that discovering that you have $400,000 more than you thought you had is a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, it was funny. And like you said, it wasn't like they had a full 400 somewhere else, right? It was like 20,000 here, 200 there. And so like you said, it added up to that. And it is funny because I see that happen more often than not. It's not always that amount. Maybe it's less, and maybe it's more, but it's funny how that works out.
I'm guessing that a lot of the people who are listening to this show today may find themselves in the same situation. Here's another question you need to ask yourself when you're figuring out how you can grade yourself and your preparations for financial security. Do you know how much you spend? That's a question that a lot of people have trouble answering.
Yeah, you know what, and it's bothering me right now because I can't think of the actual source to point out here. But I actually read an article the other day. It was from like TurboTax or one of these big firms out there. They had done a survey.
Yeah.
And again, as you know, surveys aren't always 100% correct, but it's a good idea to kind of get a general poll on some information. And so, for example, this one poll run had said 65% of people do not know how much they spent last month, right?
Yeah.
And some of you out there listening might go, well, I know how much I spent last month. And if that poll's correct, probably 65% of you don't know how much you spent last month or have an idea. And so, like you said, Ron, I think when you look at how much you spend each month, understanding how much is going out, how much is coming in, and what is needed to support your overall lifestyle, I think could be very important. And one of the things I always tell people is, of course, a lot of our clients and people I work with are typically in retirement or retirement planning phase, 55 years or older typically. But it's funny, Rob, because this can be used whether you're in retirement or whether you're 25 years old, right? I think it's a good rule of thumb just to know how much money do I make per month and how much do I have going out, right? I think it's a really good idea to understand what your budget is on a month by month basis.
Yeah, here's another question that I'm sure a lot of people would have trouble answering and probably can't really answer it unless they come talk to you. Do you know how much risk you have in your portfolio?
Yeah. Again, part of our process is always, we go through our discovery meeting, kind of getting to understand what the clients are looking for, what it is their goals are, where they're at in their current stage, right? And I always ask for every one of their statements. So I'll ask for, if they have an old 401k, an IRA, a brokerage account, savings accounts, whatever it is, right? I take copies of everything, and then we kind of start what we call our risk report. And I've told stories like this before, but it always amazes me because it happens very frequently where, I'll ask a client, hey, if we had a certain market event, maybe like a 2008 where the market went down, severely, what would be your panic button before you'd say, you know what, this is just too much? And again, this is not me saying risk is bad or risk is good. Everybody is unique in their own way, and a lot of us have different risk tolerances. And so going through this questionnaire is just kind of trying to, I always say it's not a scare tactic or any of that, just trying to get to understand a little bit about their emotions, because as we know, emotions can play a big part in the investing picture. And it's funny, Ron, because a lot of the times they'll say, well, you know what, I'm comfortable with around a 40% risk. And I mean, if I wouldn't be comfortable with more than maybe a 10 or a 12% loss, right? So if my account went down more than 10 or 12%, I would just be sick to my stomach and maybe sell or move my money or do other things, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny, so I'll say, okay, we'll jot that down. And we have a good conversation about what risk is and what it really means. And a lot of the times what I do is I'll run that risk report, which again is not my opinion or anything like that, just analyzes their current holdings and what their historical risk could look like. And a lot of the times, that 30 or 40 they thought they were as far as risk, they're actually closer to maybe a 70, right, or a 75, meaning their portfolio could go down maybe 30 or 40%, right, not that 10 or 12. And then a lot of people are kind of shocked. And again, depending on where you're at, maybe if you're 65 years old, that might be a very crucial point where you're way too aggressive to where, that might really change the outcome of your retirement plan. Again, some of you that are 40, it might not be as big of a deal, right? Risk might be a good thing, but it's important to understand where you're at and what type of risk you're comfortable with, because a lot of us out there listening don't know.
You're listening to Logan Sadler on the Financial Beat. If you'd like to get in touch with Regari Financial and have a conversation with Logan about your situation, 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call. I'll give you that number again coming up in just a few minutes. We're talking about an opportunity to grade yourself here, and I would imagine that most folks are going to have a lot of problems grading themselves when it comes to knowing how much they're paying in fees. Logan Sadler can take a deep dive analysis into your portfolio and give you a good answer on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of those things. And those of you that listen to the show for a while, you've probably heard me say this more than enough times, but of course I'm going to say it again is, I always say fees are not a bad thing by any means, right? We all know that there's cost of doing business or cost of investing or many different things out there have cost, right? But there's a difference between something that you're paying for that really provides no extra value that you couldn't get cheaper elsewhere or in a different type of investment. And then there's obviously other investments that you might have to pay a little bit more for to maybe get more bang for your buck. I always call it more value in return. But it is interesting. I'm a big believer in you got to know what you're paying, right? I think it's hard to justify whether it's a good fee or a bad fee if you have no idea what it is. And one of the things a lot of clients will ask me, Ron, when they're interviewing our firm to decide to come on board is, well, what is your fee, right? I always combat that with, I'll tell them exactly what our fees look like and what the cost is. But my favorite question to ask after that is, well, what are you currently paying, right? And most of the time, if they have an advisor, if they have other investments, they have no idea what they're currently paying, right? Or they might just throw out a number, but they're like, well, I'm not too sure on that. Let me double check, right? So I think it's very important whether you're with our firm or another firm or interviewing firms. I think it's just super important to understand, what types of investments do I have? What are my overall costs of doing business? And what is the value I'm getting in return for that? And I think it's super important to take a deep dive into that.
We've talked so many times about how it is so important to know exactly where your income streams are going to come from. And when you're retired, you need to know where that money is coming from in order to, to finance your lifestyle. And nobody wants to take a hit when it comes to their lifestyle in retirement. But it's very important to know, in advance before you retire, where that money's going to originate. Where are you going to get it?
Yeah, you're not wrong at all, Ron. I think that's one of the most crucial things we always say. Without a solid income plan in your retirement plan, you really don't have much of a retirement plan, right? Because most of what all of us listening to this show envision retirement probably involves us getting a paycheck to go enjoy things, right? So understanding your Social Security benefits, your pension benefits, other types of income and retirement tools you could use to generate income to that planning piece, I think are super important. And one of the biggest things out there is, and we have some clients that are 55 years old, and we know when they retire at 65, what their income could look like, how long could it last, all those important things. I think it's very important whether you're a year away from retirement or 5 or 6 years away from retirement, maybe even more, very important to kind of start putting together those puzzle pieces of what could your income look like and what sources do you have. And I think, that's one of the, I think this was a great segment, Ron. You did a good job there of throwing in some good puzzle pieces, we'll call it. And I think if you're one of those people out there listening and you're looking at, whether you were unsure of any of these answers when it comes to your plan, I think it's very important you maybe give our firm a call and let us show you the value that we might be able to bring to your current or upcoming retirement and see what types of crafting we could do to your plan to where we understand what type of income you have coming in, how long it's going to last, what type of tax bracket you might fall into retirement. Is there any type of efficiencies we could do on the tax end, as well as, how long is your plan going to last, and is it going to be sufficient to meet your retirement needs? And I think that's one of the things that we also offer is that in-person discovery meeting or via Zoom where we could take a deep dive and again, just see if our firm's a good fit to help bring some value to you and your current firm and bring some education to the table.
Now, about that discovery meeting, how can you get one? Well, you can get it by calling 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Leave a message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back from the good folks at Regari Financial, and then you can arrange a convenient time to have a discovery meeting with Logan Sadler. That's right. You're going to talk to Logan, the same person you hear on this radio show every single week. And the number to call to make that happen, once again, is 888-823-PLAN. With every discovery meeting, there is no charge whatsoever, and it's not going to carry with it any strings, no strings attached. 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler of Regari Financial, and we'll be right back after this.
Are you tired of feeling like taxes are draining your bank account? Do you want to keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket? Then download Logan Sadler's 2023 Guide to Tax Planning. This guide is your key to tax optimization and is filled with expert advice, the latest tax laws, and strategies for reducing your tax burden. With the help of Regari Financial and Insurance, you can rest assured that you're making the most of your retirement savings. Just text the word ADVICE to the number 21000 and get the guide for free. Just text ADVICE to 21000.
1, 2, 3, 4!
When musicians are performing, they typically need someone to count them into each song. Without that count in, the musicians might be out of sync and the song could fall apart. It's similar to your financial plan. All of your investments must be in sync, working towards your financial goals. Keep listening to the Financial Beat and learn how to make sure that your investments are playing together perfectly.
Welcome back to the Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is on the radio every single week on the show, but this is not the only way you can find out more information about getting to and through retirement from Logan Sadler. Logan has a variety of videos on YouTube, and there's the podcast to talk about. And Logan, tell our listeners about how they can access all of that good information.
Yeah, you can head over to podcast platforms, whether it's Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, and you can type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And again, it'll take you to over 100 episodes there where you can find the podcast at your convenience. And again, one of those episodes bound to bring some information to your plan there, as well as you can head over to YouTube. We've had a lot of people going over that way to YouTube and finding out more information about us on there as well. You could type in on YouTube, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and there's a lot of great videos on there with, how much should you have saved for retirement by age 60? What's the best age to retire? The 4 questions you should be asking yourself about retirement, right? A lot of great concepts where they're maybe 3 to 5 minutes long, give you some extra information and some little bit of education on maybe some questions you have about your plan.
All right. Well, hey, lots of good ways you can get in touch with Logan Sadler. But if you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation with Logan, 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call. Hope you'll write that down if you haven't already, 888-823-7526. But 888-823-PLAN. That is the number for Regari Financial, serving you wherever you are in Southern California. No industry is without its flaws, and the financial industry is certainly no exception to that. Tell us about some of your pet peeves, Logan, about the industry. First of all, I know that there are confusing fee structures out there, and I know you're not a big fan of that.
No, I'm not. Like you said, there's so many, I'll be honest with you, most people out there, even in my own family, right, or even my own friends, when we're talking, a lot of them are like, hey, how in general, how do financial advisors get paid, right? So, and it's funny because there's so much confusion about this in the industry. Some of you out there wondering what are the different fee structures or cost. There's commission. So some advisors, if they sell a product or a investment, they might get commission. And some might get a fee. So maybe they charge you a fee. Maybe it's a percentage of the assets you have there. They call that the AUM fee, assets under management. So maybe if you invest $100,000 there, maybe they charge you 1%, right? So 1% of that money on an annual basis. Again, everyone's fees can be kind of different, as well as then you have some of these other advisors that might be fee and commission based, and then some that might be planning based. So maybe they charge you like what's called like a flat fee. So maybe everybody pays the same fee, no matter how complex or there's so many different ways I could break that down, but in general, I think it's very confusing for a lot of people out there about how advisors get paid. And I think one of the biggest things is there's a lot of advantages, in my opinion, in today's world. I know a lot of advisors all across the U.S. that they charge differently, and in my opinion, there's a different model out there for everybody now, which is a good thing about it.
Yeah.
The downside is there's just so many different ways, so some people get confused if an advisor charges this way and their old advisor used to charge that way, and so I think it could be very confusing. And that is one of the things I dislike. But I think there's more flexibility now than ever as far as how you can pay a financial advisor and what type of advisor might be the best fit for you. Because maybe you're 30 years old and looking to get out of debt. You might want to go to maybe one of those flat fee advisors where they're going to charge you a flat percentage or a flat fee of helping you get out of debt and consolidating and getting you on a savings budget, right?
Yeah.
If you're in retirement, you might want to pay somebody for a plan or someone for a plan and someone to implement and manage the plan, right? So there's just so many different ways to get paid, but I think there is a lot more flexibility now more than ever. But But I think it's super important when you're going to meet with an advisor, or even if you have a current advisor. It's never I never get offended or anything like that when clients ask, how much were you charging me again, or how did your fee structure work? I think those are great questions that need to be revisited. And again, a lot of other advisors out there like myself, I'm never embarrassed to say what the costs are and what's coming with those costs. And I think a lot of advisors out there should be a little bit more transparent to their clients as well.
Another thing is we always talk about how plans for retirement, financial plans are always supposed to be individualized. There is no cookie cutter solution out there, no one size fits all for everybody. Yet there are advisors who make sales pitches as if that's true. And I know that's something that bothers you as well.
Yeah, it really does. And one thing I always pride ourselves on, we're licensed to deal in the market. We're licensed to deal with insurance. We're licensed to do a lot of different things. And I think one of the big things you see out there from a lot of these, cookie cutter advisors is they kind of throw a lot of their clients into one product. They say, hey, this is the best thing for you. Everybody should do this, right? And what's funny is I actually been reviewing a lot of these. I'm not going to mention any names, but from some of the big brokerage firms out there, investment management side of things, where they say, hey, any insurance product is bad, right? Nobody should have any type of an annuity or anything like that. They should all have all of their money in the market. Yeah. What's funny is I've reviewed probably 5 of those in the last month or on maybe the last 30 days. And it's funny, they have the exact same holdings, dollar or percentage for percentage, right? So it's crazy. I saw one of them, I'm like, that's unique, right? And then the next one I go, well, this is the same as that other one I did a few months ago. And these people don't know each other. They're actually on different sides of California. Yeah. And it was just interesting to me because it's like, well, guess what? Anybody who comes on board there, you get the same 15 or 20 investments, and that's their plan, right? And I don't think that's real customized because, as we said, which is interesting in this situation too, Ron, is these clients actually didn't even have the same goals.
Yeah.
Their risk tolerances were totally different. Their time frames were totally different. What they needed the portfolios to do were totally different. And so it was funny to me that they were the exact same, right? Because that advisor probably didn't take the time to either educate them or find out what was in their best interest. Their firm probably just did the same thing for everybody, right? Which was obvious. One time could be a coincidence, right? But 2 or 3 or 4 times was pretty apparent. And so I think it's important to understand out there that your plan needs to be customized to your goals and your concerns and your plan.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Gary Financial. 2 offices, Hemet and Redlands. And if you'd like to have a discovery meeting with Logan, just a conversation to get to know him, he can get to know you. I'll tell you how to do that coming up in just a few minutes here. But we're talking about pet peeves that Logan has. And there are certain buzzwords and jargon that get thrown around by some advisors out there and don't really mean anything to the average person. And you may leave that advisor's office kind of shaking your head, wondering what the heck was he talking about? Or you may, like so many people, just kind of sit and nod and pretend that you know what he's talking about when you really don't. And that's a real problem, and you're not going to have that problem when you deal with Logan Sadler.
Yeah, that's the whole goal, right? I always tell people, whether you meet with your tax person, a trust attorney, a financial advisor, a contractor, right, whatever it is, a doctor, you should never just kind of shake your head and nod, because what that means is, right, is you're no longer understanding, you're no longer following along about why you're doing this or how it's going to help you or how much it's going to cost or any of those types of things. You've just kind of been like, well, okay, I've mentally checked out, right? So I think it's super important. One of the things I try to do best is, obviously we have a lot of information we got to go over and a lot of different topics to typically cover in our meetings, but it's super important to try to explain things where it's very transparent and to where a lot of these people, we're not just using these big fancy fun words that might sound cool. A lot of it might be very important to kind of dive into the weeds and show them what it is, how it helps them, and explain it in a manner where they can understand it and also where they probably can repeat it. Because I'll notice after talking with a prospect or a client where they'll repeat words back to me or repeat the product or the solution or whatever it is we're doing back. And that to me shows, okay, I'm explaining it correctly, they're understanding it, and they're able to repeat it, right? So I think kind of keeping things simple and not using some of these big fancy fun words that some of us have no idea what they are or how they'll help us, right?
And sometimes when you deal with these big firms like that, you will walk away with a financial plan that consists of dozens of pages, and it may be in kind of a glossy presentation, but you don't really understand what the heck it all says.
Yeah, one of the things I'm a big fan of some of these planning softwares out there nowadays, right? I mean, we could plug stuff in, and a lot of our clients, that one of the things I like to tell people is one of the big things about our firm is we spend the time and actually plug in and make you a plan. Hey, if you're 55 or 60 years old and you're trying to see what the next 20 years is going to look like, we could factor in, what tax rates could look like, what Roth conversions might be able to what it would work out, and if it'd be a benefit for you. Portfolio performance, can we maybe reduce some risk and keep similar returns? Can we make adjustments, right? There's all this fun stuff you could do in there, as well as cash flows and all that. But I think the thing is, for most people, that's a lot to go over all in one meeting, right? A lot of them aren't going to walk away with a 40-page plan and go, okay, I know exactly what we're doing here. So one of the things I always like to do is, if we are doing those plans, I always like to summarize it, Ron, with it's like 8 bullets or 10 bullet points, where we'll go, hey, here was the 10 action items or the 10 key items we need to discuss, and here's the 10 things we're going to do, right? I think that's important. Again, some of it might be 5 things, some of it might be 10, but just keeping it short and simple and understanding the importance of what we're going to hammer down and what we're going to do, because I think that's the overall goal, right? Not just handing them a book or basically a dictionary of things that they're not understanding. And I think that's one of the things that we always pride ourselves on, Ron. We've been around for a long time, and those of you out there listening and have came in for the discovery meeting or maybe checked out our website or our YouTube channels can probably tell we're very big on giving information and educating people to make sure that, again, they're informed about some of the decisions they're going to make when it comes to their retirement plan. And we believe that we bring a lot to the table with our firm being around for a long time. And one of the things that is very important to us is making sure we're very transparent, that we can show clients, here's the value we're going to bring to the table. And here's a lot of the upcoming concerns you might have for retirement, right? Maybe crafting an income plan that shows you, how long is my income going to last? What tax brackets am I going to fall into? How long is this retirement going to last? How long will my money last, right? Will it last as long as I'm going to last? A lot of those big questions that a lot of you guys are asking, you can call and come in for that discovery meeting. And again, just see if our firm's a good fit, and maybe be the ones to help transition you to and through retirement.
You definitely do not want to outlive your money. That is the big fear for so many folks who may lie awake at night worried about that very thing. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. Find out exactly where you are and what you may need to do in order to get where you want to go in your retirement and maintain the kind of lifestyle that you've always wanted in retirement. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call for an absolutely free discovery meeting. You can do that via Zoom, or maybe you might want to come into one of the convenient offices, Hemet or Redlands. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call right now. Just call, leave a message with your name and phone number. Regary Financial will get back with you, and you can set a convenient time to have your conversation with Logan Sadler. I think you'll really enjoy getting to know him. 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. You're listening to The Financial Beat, and we'll be back with more in just a moment.
Are you worried about how taxes might impact your retirement savings? Don't let taxes derail your financial future. Download Logan Sadler's 2023 Guide to Tax Planning and learn how to optimize your Social Security, retirement savings, and investments. With expert advice, the latest tax laws, and strategies for tax optimization, you'll be on the path to maximizing your retirement savings. Just text the word ADVICE to the number 21000 and start taking control of your financial future. Just text ADVICE to 21000 and download your free copy of the 2023 edition Guide to Tax Planning.
Hi, I'm a cleverly devised personification of Wall Street. I'm one wild roller coaster ride away from wreaking havoc on your investments. If you're not properly diversified, you can bet I'll keep you up all night thinking about me. If you want to keep me off your mind, you really need a trusted advisor who'll look after your best interests. Don't wait for turmoil to hit.
In Southern California, call Logan Sadler and the Regary Financial Team at 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back with more now of the Financial Beat, and the beat goes on, as they say. Logan Sadler is the VP, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. 2 convenient offices in Southern California, one in Hemet, one in Redlands, and Logan Sadler would love to have a conversation with you. Not only is this information that we put out every week available on the radio show, but you can check out a variety of YouTube videos. Go to YouTube, type in Logan Sadler, Regary Financial. Whole lot of things will pop up there. And in addition to that, over 100 podcasts out there. If you've missed some of the past shows, we've been doing this for a pretty good while now. You can catch up on certain topics or whatever the case may be by going to YouTube. Again, the phone number is 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. That's the number for Regary Financial. Logan Sadler is the person that you will end up talking to. All you got to do today is call, leave a message with your name and number. You'll get a call back, and you can arrange a time to have your discovery meeting with Logan. 888-823-PLAN. Hey, let's talk about the financial draft. There's been a lot of talk about the NFL draft recently, and, we go through the whole suspense in the NBA draft if you're a follower of pro sports. And let's say that you're now the head talent scout for our retirement planning team. Okay. So for each of these financial draft prospects, it's your job, Logan, to explain why it's a superstar that's worthy of being a first-round pick, a possible contributor worthy of being drafted in a later round, or not worthy of being drafted at all. Okay. so this ought to be kind of interesting. How about a Roth IRA? Are you drafting that guy?
Yeah, it's funny is starting out of the gate, I would say that would be a number 1 pick, right? So a lot of you out there that make, there's income limits and things like that for Roth IRAs, but if you have a Roth component in your 401k, or you're eligible to contribute to a traditional Roth IRA, I think one of the biggest benefits you could do is start doing that, right? Because a lot of us, again, not everybody, but a lot of us out there listening, the Roth IRA grows 100% tax-free if you follow all the rules of the Roth IRA. Mm-hmm. So in retirement, you would have a lump sum of money, maybe $100,000, maybe $2 million, whatever the amount is, and it would be completely tax-free if you're over the ages of 59 and a half, and it was funded for at least more than 5 years, right? So those are one of those things where I would say, Ron, that would be the superstar. I always joke, I've never heard anybody tell me I have too much money in my Roth IRA. I've heard a lot of crazy things out there, but I have not heard that one yet, right? I've heard a lot of other things, but that's the one I have not heard. So I would say I'd have to go. That would be my first round pick for a lot of us out there.
Better to pay the taxes now than it is to do it later on when we know that taxes are going to be higher. For sure.
Absolutely. It's a great tool overall, yes, for building wealth and putting away money and all that. But like you said, just to have some tax control now and down the road is what a lot of people are wishing they had in their retirement plan right now.
I know that a lot of people come in to talk to you for the first time, and they may say, gold. Logan, what do you think of gold? Are you going to draft that one?
You know what? I'm probably going to hurt some people's feelings out there, and I don't mean this negatively at all. I would say let's say that'd be like a 3rd round pick, okay? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say never to put any money in gold, but I wouldn't say if you're building a retirement plan, one of the things gold is good for is it's like basically a commodity, right, where basically it's there to provide some protection to the portfolio, and it might give you some different inflation protection in some cases throughout history. But overall, one of the things gold is not good for in a retirement plan is it doesn't generate any income, right? It's not one of those things that you want to sell off monthly to create a monthly check. It's not one of those, to me, it's not the best used in retirement planning. So I would say it's definitely an investment. You can definitely make money on different circumstances in gold, but I would definitely say that'd be one of the last things I would look at in a retirement plan when looking at everything.
Okay, let me ask you about this one. How about life insurance retirement plan, otherwise known as a LIRP, L-I-R-P. Are you going to draft a LIRP?
Okay, again, I would say depending on your situation out there, basically, like Ron was saying, it's a way where you put money into these things, and basically it's a universal life insurance policy or a whole life policy in some cases where you're putting money in there and you're letting it sit, you get a death benefit, and after a certain time frame, you can then pull money out on a tax-free basis and still have a death benefit with the internal life insurance. So I would say for a lot of us out there, these can be a very beneficial tool, but I would definitely say you want to make sure you're contributing to your employer employer-sponsored plans. You want to make sure you have an emergency fund, and you want to make sure you've done some other things on the table before just starting the LERP. So I would say it'd probably be a second-round draft pick, Ron, maybe even a third for some of us out there. But for you high-income earners that are maybe relatively healthy, maybe in your 50s or 40s or maybe even 60s in some cases, these can be a really, really great tool for some of us out there to have some tax-free income. But I would say most of the time it's probably a second, maybe a third round draft pick for some of us.
Okay, I can't wait to get your response to this one. Let's say there's a variable annuity on the table, and you could draft a variable annuity. Are you gonna take a pick and use it for that?
You know what's funny is probably know what I'm going to say, but I'm not huge fans of variable annuities. We do use them for some clients in very, 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 very certain circumstances, right? And they do have some advantages. Don't get me wrong; they have some income they could produce. They have some lifetime income. They can have some death benefits, and they could have some good growth depending on the funds you're in inside that variable annuity. But I would say, traditionally speaking, I would say it's probably a third round draft pick, Ron, or if that, it might not be drafted, right? It might have to go back to college for another year and then enter the draft the next year. But for most people out there, I would say it's not the number one choice, especially if we're talking about even all of the annuities out there. I would say that's typically one of the last ones I'd probably use. Again, just depending on your circumstance and what your situation looks like.
Variable annuity might be fortunate in order to, sign a free agent contract with somebody. I don't know.
Maybe it could play overseas. Who knows,
Well, how about an indexed annuity? You're high on that one, aren't you?
Yeah, typically an index annuity or a fixed index annuity, typically those can have a lot of benefits to them. Again, they're not the ones, I always say, they're not the golden tool out there. They're not, everybody doesn't need one, but they can be a very good tool in retirement planning. So I would say, Ron, it's probably a second round draft pick, maybe a first round draft pick for some of us out there.
Yeah.
Depending on what situation. So I'd classify that as a 1 or a 2. And really what it's there for a lot of you guys that haven't heard of that, is basically you could put money into some of these. And again, there's many different insurance companies out there that offer these. And basically you put money into it, and there's a contract. It's a 5-year or 7-year or 10-year, whatever, however long the contract is. But they give you a lot of the upside participation of the market. Some of them have a cap rate. Maybe they give you a cap on the market. Let's say the cap is, 5%. If on the S&P, let's just say, okay, so on the S&P there's a cap of 5%. If the S&P did 7%, you would only get 5, right? You get up to the cap. Right. But the nice part is, on the downside, if the S&P loses 20%, you don't lose any money, right? They're principal protected. As well, some of them have more of a participation rate, so you get a participation of the market. And again, they don't have any downside due to market risk. And they could provide cash flow for life, like a pension. They put money in there, and they'll pay you a guaranteed for maybe your wife or your wife's life, and it's guaranteed for as long as you live. So they can have a lot of benefits, especially in the realm I'm in, where a lot of us are, a lot of our clients are in that retirement zone. They can be a very beneficial tool. So I would categorize them as a 1 or a 2 for most people.
Indexed annuity might be compared to a really good defensive back who is not going to get beaten deep and not going to give up a touchdown.
Yes, exactly it. It's like drafting a high defender. You're not drafting that high offensive guy, but maybe that really good defensive guy. You're right.
Yeah, we're talking about the things that you might draft in your financial draft on the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And just a couple more quick ones I want to ask you about. What about a rental property? You're going to draft one of those?
Yeah, what's funny is I'm probably different than a lot of advisors out there, where they would say, you know what, those are awful investments. You should just put all your money with us, right? That's what a lot of people would say. Yeah. I'll say, actually, I think they're very good investments. And, it's hard to argue with a lot of these people out there that have just done very, very well in real estate. With that said, I'll say that it's not for everybody, right? I don't think everybody out there should jump out and buy a rental property because, there's obviously still risk. The market fluctuates. You obviously got to find tenants. There's a lot of risk there to find those renters. And again, we've all heard stories of the bad renters we've had in there. So, I would say there's definitely pros and cons to that. I would say for most people out there, generally speaking, it's probably a second, I'd probably even categorize it as a third round pick. It's not something that everybody needs. Again, are they great investments? Can there be a good return? Can it be very profitable? Absolutely. There's some history out there on a lot of investors that have just done very, very well in that rental industry. So not saying it's bad by any means, but for most of us out there, in my realm, again, the retirement planning, most people don't want to retire and then become a landlord, right? A lot of the times they've already been a landlord, or maybe even looking to transition out of being a landlord.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd be too good at dealing with toilets and roofs that needed to be repaired and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. You look at like you said, the maybe the repairs you might have to do, maybe the headaches you might have to have, or if you're paying someone to do all that, the extra cost. So there's definitely some things to think about. Again, can be a great investment, but it's one of those things where you just got to kind of see is that how you envision your retirement.
Just one more question here when it comes to the financial draft. How about a REIT or a real estate investment trust? Are you high on that one as well?
What's funny is those can be very good, I would say. I always say, if you have $100,000, you shouldn't have $100,000 in all REITs, right? Real estate investment trust can be a great diversifier to a portfolio. Yeah. I categorize them mainly as like an alternative, like you were saying, Ron, where they could do, they typically perform inverse of the market depending on the REIT. The one thing I always tell people, there's actually many, many, many different types of REITs out there, just like stocks. There could be a lot of different stocks. REITs can have different types of real estate, maybe commercial or industrial or residential, right? So it's important to understand the REIT, but I do think maybe as like a second or a third round draft pick, they could be a good diversifier in a portfolio. If you have $1 million, maybe you put, 15% or so into some type of alternative. And a lot of the times that could be a REIT, just depending on which ones and again, client's risk and all the other stuff. But I would say they're a good one. I wouldn't put it number one on the list, but it's definitely could be a good, like you said, a good defensive alternative in there, and maybe someone coming off the bench and could do some cleanup work.
Logan, I know that there are some people out there who listen to the show every week, and maybe they've checked out your YouTube videos, and maybe they've listened to old shows on the podcast and that sort of thing, and just haven't gotten around to calling your office. What would you say to those folks?
Yeah, I think one of the things is, Ron, like as you guys could tell from this show and even this last segment, there is so many different types of assets out there, right? Different investment tools that can really be used. And many of you out there, you got to understand, right? There's pros and cons to each of those things that we mentioned. And I think you really got to make sure when you're looking at an advisory or an advisory firm that you have the right firm that's going to be there to guide you through these decisions, and as well has access to all of those tools to be able to make sure they're putting the right tools in your plan to get you, maybe you're 55 years old and retiring in 5 years or in a few years, and you're looking for someone to help guide you through this transition, because most of you out there, I always joke, they don't retire every day, right? But we do help people retire every day. And it's one of those things where it's a very tricky transition, and many people need that guidance and assistance to help get them to and through retirement. And we always say here on the show, a lot of the time what got you to retirement doesn't get you through retirement. So I think the best part about that discovery meeting is you get a chance to come into our office or via Zoom and interview us, and we'll interview you, and we'll see if we're a good fit and if we're the right firm to maybe transition you and your family into retirement.
If you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler, here's your number. Very important phone number. Please write it down, 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. Easy way to remember it by using the word plan, because we all need a plan. 888-823-PLAN. This show is all about getting you to and through retirement. Logan Sadler works with all three generations of some of the client families. Many of those clients have been with the firm for more than 25 years. That's a long time. And Regari Financial, of course, has not just Logan Sadler, but a group of outstanding folks who are all willing and able to work for you. They're a team. Logan Sadler, of course, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer. If you'd like to have a conversation, we call it a discovery meeting, to get to know you and you get to know him. 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call to make it happen. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all. You're listening to the Financial Beat. We'll have more coming up in just a moment. We have some questions from some of our listeners that we'll go through. This is Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler.
At the end of the day, no one truly understands your financial wants and desires better than you. That's why it's important to have financial independence. This means you can work when you want, you know exactly where your income is coming from, and most importantly, your finances are stable. If this sounds like something you want, well, text the word advice to the number 21000, and Logan Sadler and his team at Regari Financial can provide you with their free guide on achieving financial independence. The free guide will show you how to create an action plan for getting to where you want to be. It'll explain how to calculate a financial independence goal, and it'll define what an ICE egg is and why it's so important. Download it now by texting the word advice to the number 21000. Again, text the word advice to the number 21000 to gain your financial independence today.
Don't you want to see sharp and not be flat in retirement? This is the Financial Beat.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat, and we have the mailbag segment coming up here. Just a second, Logan's going to answer some questions from some of our listeners out there. But first of all, let me give you Logan Sadler's phone number at Regari Financial. It is 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today. Leave a message with your name and phone number, and you'll get a call back, and you can set a convenient time to have your conversation with Logan. We call it a discovery meeting. You discover things about him. He discovers things about you, and you can decide if you like to work together. This can be via Zoom, if you like, or you might want to come into one of the convenient offices, either Redlands or Hemet. Again, that number to call to make that happen is 888-823-PLAN. Well, as we've said many times, we not only have this radio show, but Logan is all over YouTube, and Logan's got so many great videos out there that you can check out on specific topics, and that's what a lot of people find really interesting. And Logan, tell us about those and how folks can get to them.
Yeah, Ron, like you had said, you can head over to the YouTube platform and just type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And the best part is there's new videos updated weekly on there for you to check out. And a lot of you guys have been heading over there and showing some support, so we appreciate that. And like it, leave a comment, and then maybe even let us know some other videos on some topics you might want us to cover. But there's a lot on there already, and there's more to continue to come. So just head over to the Financial Beat YouTube channel, and again, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler.
And the same thing goes for podcasts. You can listen to old shows, and basically, you got so many podcasts out there, I can't even keep up with them. Over 100?
Yeah, over 100 now. I wish I knew the exact number, but I do know it's over 100.
Yeah, my goodness. Well, hey, listen, some good questions today. First one is from Catherine in Carlsbad. And Catherine says, Logan, my parents are really starting to show their age, and I worry how much longer they'll be able to live independently at home. I think they're in adequate financial shape, but I really don't know if they have the resources to hire help if they need it or to move into some kind of assisted living community. How can I figure out what I might need to do to help them financially since I don't know the details of their situation?
Yeah, great question there. That's a tough one to kind of walk through, but unfortunately I do have some experience in this where we see this quite often, especially with a lot of our clients that have been with us for a long time or get into that phase as well. It's one of those things where I would say, Catherine, I would kind of bring it up softly, right? Because a lot of the times our parents, especially that generation, they've done things themselves for a long time, and they're probably, I don't want to say hard-headed or stubborn or any of those words, but they're probably, they're pretty self-sufficient for the most part or have been for a very long time. And so it could be a little difficult to sometimes let someone else in, but I do think it's sometimes very critical to have either a good financial advisor to walk you through all this, but also having, like you were saying, someone inside the family to help guide them and pull the trigger on some things internally. So I would kind of bring it up in a conversation. I would just kind of say, hey, look, Mom, Dad, what's our plan here? What's the next, few years going to look like for you as far as, living situation and things like that, right? So kind of slowly bring it up in a conversation. I always say, you don't want to say, Mom, Dad, how much money do you have? What type of home do you want to go into? You don't want to say it that way. Yeah. You kind of want to talk them through it and have that conversation and just tell them that, maybe if you're an only child or you have siblings, you can just kind of look, the three of us or the one of us or however many there is, we want to step up and kind of help you and make sure things are kind of handled for you. Is there anything that you don't have handled, right? And then they might say, well, I have long-term care, or I have enough assets to pay for it, or you know what, I have it set up to where we're going to go here, or they might start talking a little bit. And I think it's important to let them kind of talk you through it, and then let them kind of open the door for you. And then once they kind of give you the range, you can kind of run with that, and again, get with a good financial advisor, because there's a lot of if they do have assets and things like that, there's a lot of different things you can do and utilize different policies or things like that they might have in play.
I was just thinking if the lines of communication are open, you might even get to the point where you might be able to come and have a conversation with Logan Sadler and bring them with you. I mean, that would be an ideal situation, would it not?
Absolutely. I've had that happen a lot where a lot of people will bring mom and dad in, and a lot of times, again, they might not that they're moving anywhere or going into a home or any of that type of stuff, but just to have, like you were saying, Ron, I tend to be very good at having those conversations and kind of seeing where we're at and what the plans look like. And a lot of the times from the siblings or the daughter's standpoint, in your case, is it sometimes helps if it's someone else asking the questions and not just their daughter, right? I think that kind of is a good way to go about it.
All right. Catherine, hope you will follow this up with a phone call to Logan's office, 888-823-PLAN, and have a conversation with him and get more specific about all this. Next question here is from Ray in Yucaipa, And Ray says, I've heard that you need to have between 15 and 20 times your annual salary in savings to be able to retire comfortably. Do you think that's an accurate rule of thumb?
Yeah, thanks for writing in there, Ray. And I always say, it's funny, I actually just, we had some comments on one of our videos we did we've been talking about YouTube a lot, I know, but on one of our YouTube channels, we had some of these comments on there. And that actually is a pretty good rule of thumb for some people, or for some of us out there, so to speak. I've seen it, Ray, where some of us are able to retire on a lot less than that, right? Some of us might have pensions, higher Social Security. We might have a total different envisionment of what retirement looks like, right? So example, in your example there, if you had a $100,000 a year income, times it by 15, that'd be about $1.5 million is what you should have saved up. And that means that, so to speak, you could take around 4% of that out per year based off the 4% rule. Or in some people's math, they say, well, I could just take $100,000 out for 15 years. And if it runs out of money, it runs out of money, right? That's how some people look at it. But just so to speak, I would say the general rule of thumb, that might be good, but also it really depends on what type of income you need in retirement, what assets you have, and what your overall goals are. Because I've seen some people, Ray, that are able to retire with a lot less, and I've seen some people that are going to need to retire with a lot more, right? Maybe they have high hopes for retirement. Maybe they're retiring with a lot of debt and have high bills, and they're going to need a pretty darn good income to carry them through retirement. So I think just depending on your situation, but if you're at that point and you're getting closer to retirement and seeing, hey, you know what, where do I stack up, or where do I need to be to again fulfill the retirement I want to live, I think it's a good time to give us a call and we can walk you through that and see if you're on pace.
Again, there's no one size fits all. Everybody's situation is unique. You're unique, I'm unique, and everybody's situation is different. And Logan Sadler has experience in dealing with all kinds of scenarios. One more question today, Logan. It's from James in Anza. And James says, my sister just died a few weeks ago, and I was the beneficiary listed on her life insurance. Her ex-husband claims that he's entitled to the money instead, and he even says he has an email from her several years ago saying that she wants to leave the money to him. How do disputes like this normally get settled?
Yeah, great question. That sounds like an interesting scenario to be in.
Tough situation.
Sorry to hear. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to hear about your sister's passing. That's awful. I would say, unfortunately, again, I have some experience in this area. One of the few things I've always seen is typically the beneficiary listed on there on the life insurance or on any type of policy or whatever it is. Typically, that is the way it goes. Now, you could sometimes disinherit it and not take your portion and give it to who you want to. In some cases, sometimes you can't. But what I would say is definitely give us a call. Come in, we can walk through it. And the other thing is maybe bringing in a good estate planning attorney to maybe represent you and kind of guide you through about what you should be doing, to let them know, like, hey, look, this is how it's going to go, or whatever it is your wishes are. But I would definitely recommend getting a little team around you just to make sure you have some extra guidance, because it can get tricky. But at the end of the day, if that's what your sister had intended and that's what the forms say and that's what's on file, then that's probably how it's going to go. But not to say that her ex-husband can't cause some headaches for you along the way. So I would definitely recommend giving us a call. We could actually connect you. We work with several different estate planning attorneys that might be able to give you some a little bit more further legal advice to help guide you through that.
That's a difficult situation no matter how you slice it, and I'm telling you. So at any rate, if you would follow up James with a phone call, you can have a conversation with Logan Sadler. And Logan, a lot of folks out there may have other questions. First of all, how do they get those questions to you? And second of all, why should everybody out there listening to the show today give your office a call?
Yeah, absolutely. With questions, you could always call into the office or even comment on some of the videos or things like that on YouTube. You could also go to the website and there's actually, leave a remark or a question on there. So you head over to any of those platforms and check that out. But one of the things I always tell, if you're one of those people out there, again, and maybe you're getting closer to retirement, maybe you're 55 years old, maybe you're 60 years old, maybe even 65 plus, right? And maybe you're at a point where you've gathered up some assets. Maybe you have $300,000, maybe you got $3 million, right? And you're looking to really get a plan together for what it is you envision your retirement. Maybe you're worried about, am I going to run out of money? Do I have a proper income plan? Are my investments built to last? Have I factored in taxes, right? A lot of these things we've talked about in these shows, maybe we're talking about things where you're like, you know what, that's a good point. I haven't thought about that. That's what our discovery meeting is all about. We actually walk through your current situation and look at maybe how we could bring some value to the table and maybe adjust some things to maybe get you on a better course to give you an idea of what your retirement could actually look like. Maybe it's better than you might have thought, or maybe it's not, right? right? But we're able to actually look through that with you. And again, it doesn't cost anything. And really, you just come in, sit down, or we do it via Zoom, and we have a great conversation. We'll answer a lot of your questions, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about you and your family. And then we could decide at the end of that if you think we're a good fit to work together and go through the rest of our process.
You know, the interesting thing is that Logan Sadler talks a lot on this show. Of course, that's, the way the show is designed. But when you come to see him, you're going to do most of the talking. He'll be asking you a lot of questions in an effort to get to know you a little better.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. That's typically how it goes. I typically do like a little 3 to 5 minute intro about, hey, here's our firm, here's what we do, here's some background on myself. Do you have any questions on us? And then they'll say, well, yes or no. And then we'll say, perfect, tell me about yourself, right? And then from then on out, a lot of it's just me asking some questions and getting to understand you and again, what your family's trying to accomplish and seeing if we're the right firm and I'm the right advisor to bring that to fruition.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN, your number to call for Regary Financial. Remember, there are 2 convenient offices, one in Hemet, one in Redlands, wherever you are in Southern California. You can have a discovery meeting with Logan without coming into one of the offices via Zoom, if you like. They can set that up for you very easily, 888-823-PLAN. And a discovery meeting is not going to cost you 1 penny, not going to carry with it any kind of obligation, so you're not setting yourself up for anything at all, and you can have a conversation with Logan, then go away forever, and that's cool too, but he's willing to offer you that information for absolutely free. And I think you would certainly like to consider getting to know Logan a little better and maybe working with him down the road. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call for Regary Financial. Hey, Logan, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you today. I know you've put a lot of good information out there, and there are other means of getting information for our listeners out there, and I hope that they will all take advantage of it.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Ron. I always enjoy hanging out with you here for an hour, as well as all the listeners out there. Thanks for stopping by and spending an hour with us. Hopefully we gave you some insight and some education, also maybe a few laughs along the way. And we appreciate all the support and all the comments along the way. And we're going to be back here again next week with another show.
Join us again for the next edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Once again, the number at Regary Financial is 888-823-PLAN. See you next time.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.